Hey, my name's Adam Gerald, and in this video we're going to go over the basics of using just double nunchucking. Right? So there's a lot of different ways that you can use the double chucks, but we're going to focus on just the beginner stuff today. So one of the first things that you need to know how to do is just doing simultaneous figure eights. Now if you don't know what a figure eight is, a figure eight is when you go from the inside to the outside. Now, inside and outside, if I hold my hands out in front of me, everything in between my hands is the inside, whether I'm using left hand or right hand, doesn't matter. But now when I'm going on the outside, see how the chucks are swinging on the outside of my arms? That is the outside, this is the inside. So to make a figure eight, we go from the inside and to the outside continuously. Now this would be simultaneous inward figure eight. Now if you don't know the difference between inward and outward, I'll just turn sideways. So inward would be if the chuck was hanging down and it went away from me and then in towards me. So you can think about the top half of the circle is moving towards me. Outward would be the top half of this circle that I'm making moving out and away from me. So that's the difference between inward and outward. So we're going to start off with inwards. So we'll start with both chucks down and we're going to raise them up to the inside and then the outside. So this is what I call mirror version, right? So this is simultaneous inward figure eight mirror version. And it's a mirror version because they're both, if I put a mirror right here, they're both on the inside or they're both on the outside, right? They're mirroring each other. Now, we also have what's called same side. So same side looks like this, which means in reference to the hand that's holding them, they're both on the left side of the hand or the right side of the hand, right? So both on the left side, both on the right side, with reference point to the hand that's holding. And I can switch back to mirror version. Now, I might be making this look easy, and maybe it is easy for you, but this could also be very difficult for you, and that's okay. So you might have to spend some time just practicing this. If you mess it up, drop them down and raise up and get that figure eight going, right? Now, what we're specifically going to be doing is doing small figure eights. So that means the rotation point of the figure eight is at the end of the chuck that I'm holding, right? We also have bigger figure eights, which are things like this, right? So I can roll it at my wrist, I can roll it at my elbow joint, or I can roll it and make it really big at my shoulder joint, whether it's an outward or an inward, it doesn't really matter, right? So this is rolling at the wrist, slightly bigger, and then we have rolling at the tip of the chuck, which is what I call the small version, right? So we're gonna be mostly doing the smaller version. So again, if you need to, drop it down, raise it up, and you can go to mirror version. Once you feel relatively comfortable doing the mirror version, then switch one of them and now do same side. So they're both on the left, both on the right, both on the left, both on the right, and then switch back. Both on the inside, both on the outside, both on the inside, both on the outside. Right? And you wanna become relatively comfortable being able to switch between the two of these, right? Now, I also realize I'm gonna be going kind of fast. Feel free to pause the video and practice whatever it is that you're having trouble with. Now we're gonna do the outward version of this, right? So now I'm going outward, just like this. So I start above my shoulders and I'm going to press them out, and now they're going out and away from me from the top half of the circle, and I've got the same two ways of doing this. So I've got mirror version, which is what I'm doing right now, which means they're both on the inside, both on the outside, inside, outside, inside, outside. And then I can switch it to same side, and now they're both on the left side, both on the right side, left side, right side. I can go back to my mirror version. Now they're both on the inside, both on the outside. And again, you want to become relatively comfortable being able to switch between the two. When you're switching between the two, all you're doing is just adding an extra circle on one side, right? So I add an extra circle, right? See how my right hand is doing figure eights, but my left hand is just doing circles. If I add that extra circle on it, it allows me to change between the two, right? So now I'm on same side, and then I go back to mirror version, right? So I have the ability to change at will, and that's what I want you to be able to do. Okay, again, pause the video, practice that if you need to. We're gonna move on to the next thing. So that was our figure eights. Now we're going to do diagonal strikes, right? So a diagonal strike goes diagonally across the body from shoulder to opposite hip. So I'm gonna strike, and I'm gonna bring it back. Now when I strike and I bounce, I wanna make sure that I'm bouncing with the tip of the chuck that I'm striking with, not the one I'm holding, right? So when I touch this to my body, I want it to bounce here, and it'll wrap slightly, and then it'll bounce off. I don't want to go all the way back to where the tip of the chuck that I'm holding touches my body. If I do that, it allows extra space here and it ends up slapping my body. It's not comfortable. Plus, when you start doing different things with the chucks, you'll notice that they'll kind of collide and impact behind your back if you're reaching too far back. But if you're just touching with the tip of the striking chuck, not the holding chuck, then it'll just rebound and it won't slap your back as much, and you have a lot less chance of collision. Not saying it's impossible, just a less chance. So we're gonna do diagonals. We're gonna do what's called one and then the other first. So I'm gonna do one, diagonal, and back. And then the other, diagonal, back. So I'm only using one hand. Only one hand is moving at a time, okay? So practice this for a little bit. Feel where you need to be rebounding off your body. Right? Everybody's a little different. Some people like to go a little bit lower. Some people like to go above the belt. If I was wearing my belt would be here. I like to go just above that, and that's where I make my impact at, again, with the tip of the striking chuck, and bring it back. So again, this is one, and then the other. One, and then the other. And the same thing, when I'm bouncing up on my shoulder, I want the tip of the striking chuck touching my shoulder, my arm. I don't want the chuck that I'm holding touching it. That'll cause a slap. I've watched people bring this up and it just hit them from underneath their armpit, right? Not a thing that you want to do. You want it to just go there, and a lot of time the momentum just kind of dies real fast if you hit it in the correct spot. Okay, so now we're gonna do what's called alternating. We did one, other. Now we're gonna do alternating. Alternating is where we start to mesh them in together, so both hands will be constantly moving. So I'm gonna start with one, and now as this one goes back, my second hand, my left hand, strikes, right? So now you'll notice both hands are moving at the same time. So this would be alternating diagonal strikes, because I have one hand moving, or both hand moving at the same time. Right, if we go back to here, this is one and then the other. This is alternating. They're both moving at the same time. This is the point we want to get to. Okay? That is how you do the alternating diagonal strikes. So next we're going to move on to triangle strikes. So triangle strikes are just elongated diagonal strikes. Some people call these seatbelt strikes as well, because it's going shoulder, hip, across the hip. All right, so with just one hand, that'll look like this. Now, when I'm doing the strike, if it's an actual strike and not just a movement, right? Sometimes the movement will be in close, especially if I want it to be fast. If it's an actual strike, I reach out further and then I bring it in close to my body. Reach to try to get that strike, and then the rebound. Same thing with my diagonal strikes. If I was trying to actually strike somebody, I reach out and then I'm in close on the rechamber. Reach out, in close on the rechamber. Okay, so the actual striking part should be reaching out further if you have the intention of doing this as a strike. Now, continuing on with triangle strikes, reach it out, diagonal, now bring it across and up. So we're just adding one more step. So now it's 1, 2, 3. Same thing on the other side. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And same thing, I'm still having the impact point, the part that touches my body and my shoulder, being the tip of the chuck that I'm striking with, not the one that I'm holding. So then we can move on to alternating. That was one and then the other. Now when we do alternating, we're gonna go 1, 2, and on 3, that's when the other hand strikes. So as this one raises up, this one strikes. 1, 2, raise up, strike. 1, 2, raise up, strike. 1, 2, up and strike. 1, 2, up and strike. Right? And then you can start to speed this up as you start to feel more comfortable with this. Right? At first, you might have to go slow, but you want to make sure that both hands are essentially going to be moving at the same time. At no point do I have one hand paused and waiting for the other chuck. Right? I'm always going to be moving both of them. The only point where that wouldn't happen is when you're first starting it. But after you've got the motion started, notice both of my hands are moving at the exact same time continuously. So that is alternating triangle strikes. Next thing we have is cross strikes. So a cross strike and a triangle strike are very similar. The main difference is before I throw a cross strike, I'm going to drop my elbow down so that I can have my strike going horizontal, right? I'm striking here versus up, where my elbow's up, and I'm going diagonal. See, the first part is diagonal on a triangle strike. It's horizontal on a cross strike. And then it finishes the same way. Bounce, 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 bounce. We also want to try to make sure that we're striking through our own head level, not way down here, right? Don't try to strike down through the body, strike through your head level. So let's do one and the other. Strike horizontally across the head, bounce, bounce. Other hand, strike, bounce, bounce. Still bouncing with the tip of the striking chuck. Strike horizontally, bounce, bounce. Horizontally, bounce, bounce. So do one, and do the other, one, and then the other. Good. Now once you feel comfortable with that, same thing, we want to start meshing them in together. So instead of doing one, finishing the strike, and then doing the other, finishing the strike, we're going to strike out. As we bring it back and we're about to raise it up, that's when the next strike goes. Strike out, back, out, back, right? So if we break it down, counts 1, 2, other one strikes. 1, 2, raise up and strike. 1, 2, up and strike. 1, 2, up and strike. And then we want to get to the point where we can start making these pretty quick, right? We should be able to flow relatively continuously with this, right? So we're striking across, bouncing up, striking across, bouncing up. Ideally, once we've got this flow going, there's no point where one of our hands is just kind of chilling here and waiting, chilling here and waiting. One of the things that makes double chucks look impressive is the fact that both hands are continuously moving instead of just one hand does something and then the other hand does something. So that was our alternating cross strikes. So now we're going to get to what, at least I've been told, is one of the most difficult of the basic double chuck techniques, right? And that's the alternating outward figure eight strikes. So you need to know first how to do an outward figure eight strike. An outward figure eight strike starts from above the shoulder. It's going to go inside first, then outside, and then if we're just doing single chucks, we would bring it under the armpit and catch it. When we're doing double chucks, we bounce it. So we go inside, outside, bounce, up. Inside, outside, bounce, up. So I throw it to the inside first, then I go to the outside, bounce, and up. Inside, outside, bounce, up. Same thing, when I'm bouncing with the tip of the chuck that I'm striking with. So that is that. Practice that if you need to. If you're able to, we're going to start going one and then the other. So inside, outside, bounce, up. Inside, outside, and it goes back towards the inside when it's getting ready for the bounce, up. Inside, outside, bounce, up. Inside, outside, bounce, up. Inside, outside, bounce, up. Now, practice that for as long as you need to until you feel comfortable. Once you do, then we're going to move on to alternating, right? So that was one and then the other. Now we've got alternating, which means inside, outside, and now as I'm going for that bounce and the up, that's when I throw my other one. So as I'm going for that bounce, I throw the strike. So if I slow it down again, inside, outside, as it's coming down towards this bounce, that's when I'm throwing this next one. So if you need to isolate it, because again, this one can be a little bit more tricky than the other ones. Inside, outside, slow down here, go for the bounce, and then just throw this one, right? And you can practice just that at first. Inside, outside, bounce, and throw. Inside, outside, bounce, throw. Inside, outside, bounce, and throw. And then you can start with the other hand. So now I go inside, outside, bounce, and throw. And notice I'm just stopping it. I'm not continuously going because this can kind of help you build up that pattern in your body. Inside, outside, bounce, and throw. Inside, outside, bounce, and throw. Inside, outside, bounce, and throw. Right? So start to get that as much as you can, and then work on continuously going. Bounce and throw, inside, outside, bounce and throw. Right? And you want to, again, get to the point where both hands are just moving continuously, right? At no point do either one of my hands stop and wait for the other one to happen. So I'm just flowing between these. From the side, it'll look like this. Okay, so that is how you do your alternating outward figure 8 strikes. Now, these techniques are what I deem as beginner double chuck techniques, right? Of course, we can go to a lot more advanced stuff. There can be throws, tosses, and maybe I'll film a lesson on that a little bit later. I do have all the more advanced stuff in my courses, whether you check out my courses on Skool or my course in GMAU, right? Different options. Play around with it. But hopefully you enjoyed this, and comment down below if you did, if you want to see anything else, or if there's anything that you're struggling with in this specifically, let me know down below. Have a great day.